Hi friends, welcome back for another video with me. If you are new here, my name is Allie Valentin and I love a good, honest, real conversation about all things life, relationships, and biblical womanhood. So if that's something you're interested in, click subscribe for more videos like this. But today you're in for a real treat, guys, because I just thought, you know what? It's time that we have ourselves just a little heart to heart again. Just let's sit back, chat, grab that cup of coffee, get comfortable, because I'm going to talk about something that's so real to the Christian life, to faith, to just life in general, that often we don't really talk about how to navigate really well. And that is rebuilding trust with God. You know, in life, there's a lot of things that often come our way that are disappointing, painful, that are not how we expected things to turn out, that are not just or fair, that don't make sense. And somehow we're supposed to just cling to and hold to the same level of trust in God that we had in Him before that event or that thing or whatever it might be unfolded in our life. And sometimes we don't end up with the right tools, with the right way of working through the emotions that we're facing, or with dealing with the pain or disappointment that's in front of us. And we end up living with this lack of trust with God that is detrimental to our life. Here's the deal. It may not be your fault that you're feeling pain or disappointment or a lack of trust in the Lord, but it is your responsibility to sort that out and make your relationship and your connection to God right. So if you're tuning into this video today and you have found yourself feeling that level of disappointment, pain, lack of trust, whatever it might be, where you feel like your connection with the Lord isn't what it was, or you have felt like, I just really deeply want to trust the Lord in this area of my life specifically, and I feel like I just simply don't, well, you're in for a real honest conversation in this video about what that actually looks like and how to take steps, practical steps towards rebuilding trust with God. So, ladies and gentlemen, buckle up. Here are 3 different reasons that we often begin to lose trust and what to do about it on the other side of that. Number one of the first reasons that we often begin to lose trust in the Lord is because there's been some level of pain that we've experienced. Now, it's basically like, how can you even go about almost any day and not feel some level of pain, whether it's physical or emotional or spiritual? There's often things we confront in every single day that challenges us, that causes pain in our heart and in our life, in our relationships. And if we don't confront that, that pain point can become a thing that actually draws disconnection versus connection in your relationship with God. You know, relationships is one of those just experiences in life. It's kind of like the incubator to figuring out some things that maybe have been stuck on the inside. And it has a way of just bringing things up to the surface, so you have to confront them face to face. See, between Elijah and I, there are things that go on in almost every day that could cause the other person some level of pain. I remember this moment actually quite in particularly when we first were dating. And Elijah and I had probably been dating for, 4 months. And it was my first sort of serious relationship. And I could feel that there was this lack of connection. I could feel the disconnection continuing to grow in our relationship. And my fear was that things would just fall apart, that we were just going to break up. And I even began to feel a bit nervous to interact with him because I could feel this disconnection. And it wasn't making me want to jump in and cling tighter. It was making me want to run because I was scared that if I attempted to confront it, that somehow it would be more painful, that it would just shatter and things would fall to the ground. And so I just began to grow even further and further disconnected until one day, Elijah and I were driving in the car and we were supposed to have a little date night. And I just felt this thick tension in the car because I could feel this lack of connection. And as we pulled into the driveway, I just looked at Elijah and I was like, are we okay? And I remember it was like this brave step to communicating to Elijah that I felt disconnected. And he looked at me and he, I think, could sense my anxiety. And he said, Allie, it's actually pretty normal in a relationship to sometimes feel disconnected. You might even feel a lack of connection for days on end, maybe even sometimes weeks before you really feel fully connected again. It doesn't make everything wrong or, like you need to call it quits. But I realized in that moment that my own fear of the thing that was causing the disconnection was causing further connection. My fear that if I leaned in, that there would be more pain to confront, that things would fall further to pieces, that it would just crumble right in front of me, actually kept me from reconnecting with Elijah. And you know what happened after we reconnected? There was a greater level of trust with Elijah because I realized we can go through hard things. There can be days where we feel disconnected, but I can trust that on the other side of that, there will be a level of connection that we regain. And that's okay. Sometimes the very thing keeping us from rebuilding trust with God, reconnecting with the Lord, is that if we do, we will experience further pain, that things will just somehow crumble to the ground, that everything that we're controlling over here in our passivity will somehow suddenly be up in front of us and overwhelming, something that we can't bear on our own. See, but if we take our pain, if we take the thing that is causing us hurt and harm, and we bring it to the Lord, and we show Him, and we process it with Him, I promise you that God will meet you there every single time. It doesn't discount the level of pain you felt, but it does increase the level of intimacy that you'll have with the Lord because you'll have history with Him. If you have experienced pain and you've realized, you can think back to a moment that was hard and difficult with the Lord where you felt pain. Maybe it was in a relationship. Maybe it was really something just simply in your life between you and God, and you haven't brought it to Him. You've allowed it to be the thing that has kept you from deep connection with the Lord. Bring that thing that's painful to Him. Take that thing that is scary and lay it at His feet and watch what He does with it. Okay, the second thing that often causes a level of disconnection and lack of trust with God is disappointment. Now, I know it can kind of feel like it's under that same umbrella of pain because it kind of is. When we experience a level of disappointment, there's often a level of sadness or pain that we experience. Now, I was recounting this kind of funny story the other day, but I was reminded of this time when, I was about like 10 years old. And I had gone to the dentist. And after the dentist, my mom would often take us to get a treat. Now, my mom was like crunchy granola. Like, she was super healthy. And so sometimes a treat was like apples with cinnamon. And you're like, is this even a treat? But this time, after my dental appointment, she promised me she was going to take me to get a shamrock shake. I mean, your girl was excited. I just couldn't wait. And as we got in the car and began driving through the drive-thru to get my Shamrock Shake, they informed us that they were out of the Shamrock Shake. You can imagine my extreme level of disappointment at 10 years old. I mean, I was devastated. I'm sure I was crying and yelling and so sad and frustrated. Nothing was going to solve the problem. My mom got extremely frustrated. We drove straight home. I didn't get any level of treat. She just basically gave me the, you wait until your dad gets home little treatment. And when my dad got home, she relayed the information to him, and it was just embarrassing, awful. I felt humiliated. I probably deserved some of that sort of punishment. But the reality was, when I think back to that moment, There was actually an overwhelming emotion of disappointment that I didn't know how to process. See, so often in life, we actually become humiliated by the disappointment that we feel. We begin to feel ashamed of the fact that we feel disappointed. We feel like maybe we should be more thankful, or maybe we should count our blessings, or maybe we should have had that extreme level of a response to the situation. But actually, the Lord's never told us we can't feel disappointed. Don't you think that when Judas and Peter betrayed God, that he had some level of disappointment? Disappointment is not a sin. It's what you do with the disappointment that will or will not affect your connection with God. See, if you allow disappointment to fester in your heart, if you act like it's not there and you try to push it away and pretend, if you grow ashamed and humiliated of it and don't acknowledge it, you actually just allow that thing to become a wedge in between you and your connection with God. See, as I grew up, I can now recount so many more memories that as I got older and actually really confronted really disappointing circumstances in my young adulthood, I didn't know how to process the disappointment. And so I grew really good at coping in a lot of different ways, in ways that were unhealthy to my whole soul and body and being, and ultimately led to a disconnection, not just from God, but from my own heart. And sometimes acknowledgement is the very first step to getting over that hurdle and rebuilding connection with your heart and with God. So if you have experienced some level of disappointment, maybe in your life, I didn't think this season would be this way. I thought I'd be married by now. I thought I'd be able to have kids, and now we're facing this infertility issue. I thought, whatever it is that you are experiencing, whatever that disappointment is, no matter how big or small it is, do not grow humiliated by it. Grow in tune and in touch with it. Allow yourself to feel the depth of that disappointment and bring it to the Lord. Don't just allow that thing to fester, for that wedge to be set in between you and God. Sometimes disappointment begins to speak to us. It begins to tell us things like, this is going to be the rest of your life, or it's never going to be good enough after this. But the reality is sometimes a season of disappointment is simply that. It's just a season. I remember hearing this person speak when I was in a season of extreme disappointment. And she said, do you think the trees in the winter stand there bare without their leaves, so terrified that by spring their leaves won't grow back and they're just going to remain bare? No, they know it's winter and spring's going to come and they're going to be dressed in their spring suit and they don't have to become anxious about it. Sometimes the same thing exists with disappointment. But know that come spring, things are going to shift and this isn't going to last forever. Sometimes it means that we need to lay some soil to prepare ourselves for the springtime. Sometimes it means we need to water our garden a little extra because it hasn't been a very rainy winter. Sometimes we have to do a few things, right, to prepare ourselves for the springtime, to not solely just sit settled in the midst of the winter. But it's okay that you feel disappointment. The last thing that often leads us to a lack of trust is when shame enters our life. Shame is really nasty. I know from personal experience. Shame is that thing that tells us that I am bad. When I think of shame, I always think of the story of Adam and Eve, right? Adam and Eve, they eat of the apple and God comes back into the garden. And he goes, Adam, where are you? And Adam immediately makes an I am identity statement. He says, God, I'm over here. I am naked. It was immediately that he was filled with shame and it attacked his identity. That's what shame does. It attacks our identity. Conviction, however, always ushers in a solution because the Holy Spirit has a plan for every little pickle that we get ourselves in. When we allow shame to seep into our being, it actually begins to taint the way that we see the world, ourselves, and God. Maybe it's something you did personally. Maybe it's something that was done against you. But if we don't take the experience where we fell over, tripped, fell, cracked our lenses, and don't go get those lenses fixed and repaired. We'll walk around every day with these lenses that are actually distorting our view. But we need to take those lenses when they've been dropped on the floor, brush them off, put new lenses in them, and be able to see how the Lord sees us. Shame will distort the way that we see the world and ultimately will affect the way in which we walk about our day. If you're walking around with cracked lenses on, you're not going to want to hike Mount Everest. You're going to want to have some clear visibility when you're doing that. You're not going to want to get in your car with some distorted lenses. You're not going to be able to drive and keep everybody safe around you. You need to make sure that your lenses are not filled with shame. And it is too costly to go about our day living with any thought that's less than his thought towards us. One of the greatest keys to getting rid of shame is bringing it to the light. Sometimes that means inviting a trusted person into the process with you, telling them why you're feeling shame, bringing it to the light in a safe place, asking the Lord what he thinks about it. Now we know, Romans 8, that nothing can separate us from the love of God, but sometimes shame causes us to feel like we're distant from him. It's not the truth, but in order to get rid of that shame, you need to bring it to light. You need to bring it to the surface in order to feel that deep connection with the Lord again and rebuild trust with him. Here's the reality. These life experiences can hurt the way in which we view God. It's not your fault. You don't have to feel some level of shame that you don't have a full sense of trust in God in every single area of your life. But it is your job to figure out where and why you don't, so that you can lean into that perfect connection, that shalom that you have been created to live with. So as I'm sort of wrapping up this video today, I would encourage you, after we're done, to take a few moments if this is something that's resonating with you. And I would encourage you to ask yourself a few questions. I would ask yourself, how do I view God? Is there somewhere in my life that I don't trust him? Have I experienced a level of pain, disappointment, or shame that I need to bring up to the surface and lay at his feet? And then I want you to imagine yourself doing that, coming to the Lord with the pain, disappointment, shame, whatever it is, and laying it at his feet. Watch what happens. How does he engage with you? How does he respond when you come to him with your pain and disappointment? How does he embrace you? What does he do with it? What becomes of it when you bring it to him? Ladies, gentlemen, thank you for watching today's video. This has been a video where I felt like it's so real. Like, I have experienced pain, disappointment, and shame, and I'm not even sure I'm fully aware in how they've truly affected my depth of connection with the Lord, but I never want them to. And so I am hungry. I am eager to make sure that in my heart that I continually bring these things to the Lord, the places where I have hurt and pain, because he says in Proverbs, above all else, guard your heart because everything you do flows from it. It's important that we're aware of what's going on in our heart, that we guard it well because everything we do flows from it. So, ladies, gentlemen, thanks for watching. I have a little announcement for you guys. I have recently launched a mentorship program for young women. It's called Truly Living Mentorship. It's a 6-week faith-led mentorship. So if that's something you are interested in, you can learn more in the description below. See y'all next time.